All right. Today, making his triumphant return is composer extraordinaire Christophe Beck. Christophe, welcome back to Friends from Work, and how are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here again. Thank you, Kyle.
Let's go. First off, congratulations on your release of Quantumania. We freaking loved it, as always. Stoked.
Thank you.
You're kind of becoming something of a MCU rarity now in that you are one of the few people that got a chance to compose all three films, a full trilogy in Ant-Man. And so I kind of want to start off by talking about the main theme first. How has it evolved for each project? And when you got the pitch for Quantumania, obviously you want to evolve it to have it match the genre a little bit more, but you got to still keep it recognizable. And so what was that task like? And just take me through that process.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. It's a great question. I'm very, very proud of that first Ant-Man movie score, especially the theme. It has endured, there are aspects of it that I find really fun and delicious to return to. One of them is the fact that it's in an odd meter. It's in 7 beats to the bar. Most music is in 4 or 3. And that is something that you hear in all 3 movies. And that is is almost like a linchpin that I can return to, and I can have fun with the theme in other ways. And the fact that it remains in that 7 beats to the bar means that there's automatically an element of recognizability, an element that tethers all the different versions that you hear together. And it's also a point of pride that I am completing a trilogy. Well, actually, we don't know if there will be a 4th one.
True.
Maybe there will, maybe there won't. But so far, the trilogy is 3 movies, not just because I get to play with the Ant-Man theme, but also because I get to continue to explore the other themes for the other characters. We have a theme for Hank, we have a theme for Janet, we have a theme for Hope, and these play more minor roles in the first 2 movies. Actually, the second movie was when we really introduced Wasp as a main character, and that's what, we really featured her theme there. But there's this bedrock of musicality that I can build on, and it just means that when I revisit these themes in Quantumania, they have more meaning. They're already ingrained to some extent in the consciousness of the audience. And that just gives me more tools to play with. In particular, the Ant-Man theme got a workout in Quantumania. It's the first movie where I had the opportunity to play it in the grand epic scale that matches the grand epic scale of the film itself. The first 2 movies were much more self-contained and dealt with themes, story themes now that were a little bit smaller. Here we're telling a story that is a much more important story in the grand scheme of the MCU, and it presented me with an opportunity to widen my palette. So we have some really big and stately and huge in terms of the orchestral forces that I brought to bear versions of the theme. We also, for the first time in this movie, explore the romance between Scott and Hope, and I got to explore what that Ant-Man theme might sound like in a romantic context. And of course, my current favorite version of the theme is the first track on the album and the piece that plays during the big end credits piece, where I got to do a very high energy, very intense version of the theme with a lot of burbling electronics that presented the theme in a whole new light.
On the theme still, chicken or the egg here, when you first wrote it, did you have to have the foresight of knowing, like, I can take these same progressions, these same melodies, stretch them out for a song like Honey, I Shrunk the Energy Core? Like, did you have to project that? Or did you now walk into Quantumania going, oh, I have this theme, how can I mess with it? Or like, a couple times in the film, you strip it down to like just a Rhodes or something, and it's kind of supposed to be reflective. Did you have to piece that afterwards, or did you kind of have to project that when you first wrote it?
Okay, the answer is egg. Actually, no, it's chicken. I'm not really sure, but I can answer the second part of your question, which is no, I did not know. I think as a composer, you write what's in front of you, and then when opportunities exist in future movies to expand on that material, you draw upon your skills as a composer. In my case, a lot of training and a lot of experience, and some tools in my musical toolkit that enable me, and I'm I can also say many of my colleagues, to take just about any theme, and depending on how you dress it up, the instrumentation, the underlying rhythms, present it in all sorts of different contexts, like the ones I just mentioned. It reminds me a little bit of when I was scoring Buffy the Vampire Slayer for a few seasons, where on a TV schedule, you're flying by the seat of your pants, and there's a character that comes on. You don't know whether that character is going to become a main character in future episodes or not. You just write what's in front of you. True. And then if it turns out that that becomes a major element, then you work with what you got.
I want to compliment you for a second. One of the reasons you're one of my favorites is the way you sonically handle the low end of your mixes, in that I feel like a lot of film scores can tend to be pretty hollow, but whether it's the way you handle it in production with synth basses or programmed kicks, or if it's an engineering thing with close miking, or if it's just a mix thing that someone else is doing, I feel like your tracks always sound so full. And so thank you for that. I think it's one of the things that separates you, but also like blends the classical with the modern style so well. Is that conscious for you, or just it happened?
First of all, thank you. That is a compliment. And I would say all the above. Production has always been something that's been very interesting to me. I grew up listening to pop music and gravitated towards music that I could lie in bed when I was supposed to be sleeping, put on headphones, and just revel in the ear candy of it.
Well, you can tell.
Find details in the music that really got me excited. There is a danger when you're as into production as I am that you lose sight of what's really important, which is the composition, or in the songwriting world, the actual song. But I try to balance my attention so that I make sure that the composition is solid, and then the ear candy part can serve to support what is a strong core musically. And as far as the low end goes, that's something I pay attention to. Good. when I'm mocking things up, and it's something my engineer, who I think is brilliant, Casey Stone, knows is important to me. And the way he mics low percussion in the room, for example, there's always attention paid to capturing it in such a way that we have control over the low end when he mixes it, and it's also him who mixes it, and that's something that we talk about and think about.
Well, I can tell there's care put there, so I love that. Let's talk about Kang for a second. Take me through your process on writing his theme, and I have a follow-up question to that, and kind of the thought behind all the pitch bending, like the stuff, which is so dope.
Yeah, thank you. The pitch bend effect is something that I love exploring. There's a beautiful tension.
Yes.
When there's, first of all, let me answer the first part of your question first, which is that my initial approach to Kang was to write a more traditional villain theme, something that could be bombastic, low brass, and with, frankly, a lot of notes. And when I started to apply this theme to scenes that Kang was in, it became clear that the character, particularly the actor who plays the character, Jonathan Majors, he brings such an incredible intensity to his performance. Every scene he's in, he's magnetic. It felt like too much. He brings so much to that role. He does not need me to sit there and go, this guy's evil, this guy's dangerous,
Correct.
This guy's powerful. It's all there on screen. So there was a process of simplification until I ended up with a very simple 3-note motif that I could play with, playing with half steps. And for those in your audience who maybe don't understand what I mean, half step is the 2 notes on the piano adjacent to each other. It's basically the closest 2 notes can be without being the same note. Playing with half steps opens up the possibility of playing with pitch bends, where instead of switching from one note directly to the next one higher, you slowly move it up, and it creates this beautiful tension when you're in between notes. You don't quite know where you are as you're feeling that tension, and then it resolves onto its note. And I play with half steps up, I play with half steps down, and slightly larger intervals as well. So Kang's theme was a process of simplification until it felt like I could let Jonathan's performance do the talking and just be there to support it rather than tell the story. And the pitch bend was just something that I realized could be done with that type of simple theme, and was very effective.
I love that because his performance also has so much like humanity and mystery to it. And I feel like what you ended on is the right thing, because it has that too. It didn't have to be, like you said, oh my gosh, here comes the villain or something,
Exactly. I needed something that I could, that could be played very bombastically when he explodes in rage, but also, when we first start discovering who this character is and how he came to be, there's a melancholy and loneliness to it as well.
Yeah. Was there ever any thought to playing off what Natalie Holt did in Loki at all with He Who Remains? Or did you say, hey, this is a variant, I want to do something totally fresh, it's a different character?
Yeah, the latter. That's something we talked about early on in the process, me and the director, Peyton Reed. I love what Natalie did in the Loki series.
Oh, it's so good.
I really enjoy playing my part to make the cohesiveness musically in the wider MCU. And when there are opportunities, I've taken them to reference themes of other characters.
Yelena and Hawkeye.
In the various Marvel projects that I've done. And we talked about that. And we decided, no, this guy is an entirely different character with an entirely different story and deserves his own sound and his own theme. And I imagine as we progress over the next few years, telling the story of all the variants of Kang and all the multiverses these characters come from, I should say all the universes this character comes from in the multiverse, that they will also have their own unique identities.
2 more questions. What's with the absolutely ridiculous titles, and how fun is that for you? I mean, things like 50 Shades of Kang, Honey, I Shrunk the Energy Core, He Kang, He Saw, He Conquered. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'll credit my dad for that.
That sounds like a dad joke.
I grew up listening to my dad make absolutely horrible puns, and that's something that has stayed with me into adulthood. And it's something that when the tone of the film feels right, I dive into. In fact, there's a whiteboard in my studio. Actually, it's not there anymore because I've moved since then, but there used to be a whiteboard in my studio, and a couple weeks before the soundtrack titles were due, I would open it up to my entire team and say, anyone who has any ideas for any fun titles, put them here. And it's something we started about 8-10 years ago. For those of your listeners who are interested, if you look at my social media, I did post a couple of photos of those whiteboards. I think we have one for Frozen 2 up there, most of which were not used. But that is a really fun part of the process for me. The working titles we use, composers working on these films, are really boring and utilitarian, and necessarily so. I need to look at a title for a cue and know what scene it is just from the title. But that also makes for a kind of boring track list. So I try to improve on them before the soundtrack comes out.
I love it. All right, lastly, I'll get you out on this. Anything you want to tell our audience? What's next for Christophe Beck? What should they be looking for? What are you working on, etc.?
Well, I have Shazam! Fear of the Gods coming out in a few weeks.
Okay.
I actually finished that well before I started on Quantumania due to release schedule shuffles. It ended up coming out after. And that's a very different feeling movie and a very different feeling score, much more traditional and great fun.
Love that. Well, Christophe, thank you so much for doing this. We'll be following anything and everything you do. Just know, from our perspective, we have indoctrinated our audience into the doctrine of Christophe Beck, the GOAT. So thank you for doing this. You're the best of the best. Thanks for your time, and thanks for being a friend from work.
I'm very flattered. Thank you, Kyle.